Good morning, good afternoon, and perhaps good evening to some of you. My name is Dave Cope. I run Cloud Solution Market Development and Business Development for Cisco. And on behalf of Cisco and also AWS, we really want to thank you for joining us to talk about containers, specifically Kubernetes, how businesses are using these new technologies to accelerate innovation, and specifically talk about the joint hybrid solution using Kubernetes that was brought to market by both Cisco and AWS. We put together what I think you'll find a very targeted agenda. First of all, and as a way of introduction, we'll have Matt Little, who's the Principal Solutions Architect for AWS, really step back and talk about containers and Kubernetes as technology and how you can use it to your advantage, again, to develop and version applications much more rapidly than in the past. I'll then sort of step back, lift it up a level, and talk about how businesses are using and planning to apply these new technologies to be able to really blur the lines between traditional boundaries, which were data centers and increasingly clouds. Then Tuan Nguyen, who's the principal engineer for Cisco, will talk specifically about our joint solution that was brought to market by Cisco and AWS. And then finally, I'll talk about how Cisco is working hard, both through tools and processes, to make it easy for you to put these new Kubernetes-based solutions into production environments. I also would like to let you know, just as a part of housekeeping, that along the way, keep your eyes tuned for some polling questions that you'll be asked, and we very much appreciate you answering those poll questions, and we hope to share the results with you. And then finally, at the end, during the presentation and at the end, there is an environment that you'll see where you can actually ask questions, and we'll do our best to address those questions, time permitting. So what do we hope that you really get out of today's session? And how should we expect you to test, sort of the integrity and the value of this session that you're spending your valuable time attending? First of all, we want you to really hear from experts about containers, microservices, specifically Kubernetes technologies, and how these new technologies can actually help you accelerate application development and innovation. Secondly, we want to talk about the real world. How do we take these new technologies and actually bring it into a real business production environment and help you actually improve the competitiveness of businesses using these new technologies? And then thirdly, there's always this natural tension between sort of reducing risk and utilizing new technologies. How is Cisco and AWS working together to allow you to have a completely supported solution that includes a lot of the other functionality that you need, such as policy-based governance, et cetera, to be able to run this in a production world? So those are the key takeaways we hope you'll get out of today's session. So let's get started. Matt, do you want to just say hello and introduce yourself?
For sure. Thanks, Dave. So my name is Matt Little. I'm a Principal Solutions Architect at Amazon Web Services, as Dave said. I work with AWS customers all around the world, helping them build business-critical applications, and to make best use of AWS. Today, I'm really excited to talk about Kubernetes and our partnership with Cisco, because Kubernetes has become extremely popular amongst our customers. And we're working together with Cisco to help make it easier to use Kubernetes across all their operating environments.
Terrific.
So I just wanted to start off with just a few words about Kubernetes. Most technologists today have heard of Kubernetes, and plenty of my customers are already well invested, well down the path of making use of it. But just as a backdrop, it's an open source container management platform It's built to help you run containers at scale. It comes equipped with tons of tools and features and functions, distributed applications using modern software development practices. And so these are really popular amongst the customers that I work with, really critical parts of their strategy moving forward into a cloud and digital age. So these include DevOps, building DevOps teams, microservices architectures, and 12-factor applications. And I'm going to talk a little bit about 12-factor that applies to the Kubernetes world. And Kubernetes really is built in this environment of needing to support DevOps, microservices, and needing to support this set of practices or best practices that have been identified over the last couple of years as enabling agile, scalable software delivery. So this is really important for today's SaaS economy. And so these get used by software vendors and enterprises all around the world. So Kubernetes natively supports all of these principles. It's got DevOps-focused workflows to build, package, deploy, configure, operate services. It has a strong microservices focus with port binding and tools for service discovery and orchestration. It's got super fast startup and shutdown and has really strong decoupling of services and dependency management. So this way, just straight out of the box, as teams adopt Kubernetes, they find they're immediately enabled to start to build out these capabilities, which, as I said, are really critical for success in today's SaaS world. So, I think I clicked too often there. So, Kubernetes also has this really amazing, enthusiastic developer community. It's one of the most popular open source projects on GitHub. On GitHub, there's over 80,000 commits, over 2,000 contributors, and Kubernetes itself, being so broadly adopted, has garnered a lot of interest from a lot of tech companies, small and large, around the world. And the CNCF, the Cloud Native Compute Foundation, has taken over management of the Kubernetes code base and ensuring delivery and support of Kubernetes. And AWS and Cisco are both members of the CNCF and both contribute to Kubernetes. Having that community is really critical for most enterprises, most software organizations to have that confidence that the open source tool that they're using is going to stay up to date, is going to continue to support the integrity of their applications moving forward. Now, Kubernetes itself, you can think of as this a single, rich, extensible API that can be used to abstract resources, both within AWS and on premises. So when Kubernetes is used on AWS, you can take advantage of the scale, performance, and breadth of features that AWS has to offer without having to dive as deep into every single integration with those services. So there are a lot of tools that enable that integration between Kubernetes and native services on AWS. And this is part of what helps accelerate teams when they adopt Kubernetes and start to build out new solutions, accelerates their capabilities and use of AWS. The Kubernetes API itself, of course, then it stays the same no matter what environment you're operating in, whether on premises or in the cloud. Which brings me to my next point here, that Kubernetes can run anywhere. This is absolutely one of the most important features of Kubernetes, that You can run it on premises or in the cloud. You can run it in, there's many different platforms that support operating Kubernetes. So they like it. A lot of our customers like it exactly for this reason. They can make investments on premises. They can then go and containerize applications and utilize them there. They can migrate them into other environments, the cloud or elsewhere. They can build new apps in the cloud, but deploy and test on premises. There are a whole lot of different ways that customers can make use of this ability to build and manage seamlessly in multiple environments. But we, under all of this, we consider that it's incredibly important that you think about where you run Kubernetes. So Kubernetes gives you all this ability, and it gives you the ability to run things just anywhere. But the speed and stability and scalability of the underlying platform are still critical to your success. So these will all impact the quality of applications you build. And the better the platform is, the less you have to do to worry about integrity of the overall application, and the more you can focus on building the application itself, building quality into your application, and building features that your users will love and will benefit from. It's so important to have that focus on keeping your customers happy. And if you're spending time worried about the platform, then that's going to reduce the time you can do that. So, things like performance and scale and availability are critical to your customer's experience of your application. So it is really important that you pay attention to where it runs. So our customers believe there's a lot of advantages to running Kubernetes on AWS. So according to a CNCF survey, over 60% of Kubernetes workloads run on AWS today. So this is organic growth, and it's fueled by that strong community that we mentioned, and also by the growth in the feature set, functionality, and integration with AWS. Part of the benefit and part of the reason for us to partner with Cisco is to ensure that for our customers that are running in multiple environments, they get the benefit of running on a strong platform, and they get a benefit of being able to seamlessly build across different environments. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Dave.
Great.
And look forward to taking questions later on.
Terrific. So as I mentioned earlier, and Matt, I really appreciated your comments, but as I mentioned earlier, now we're going to talk about Kubernetes, and now we're going to step sort of back up before we go and have Tuan cover the detailed joint solution. But what are businesses thinking about out there? And what we're seeing today around the world is that businesses are looking to accelerate innovation. And typically, innovation means the rapid delivery and versioning of new applications to drive efficiencies both internally and also provide value-add services to customers and partners. And today, customers are looking to access innovative capabilities no matter where they reside, whether they be on-prem or in the cloud. And furthermore, beyond viewing on-prem and cloud environments as silos, there's a tendency to try to create the capabilities to create a degree of transparency between on-prem and cloud environments to be able to get the best of both worlds, to be able to blur these environments together with policies, security, governance, etc., but access native capabilities that may occur in each of these environments and use it to, again, accelerate innovation. And with this trend in the industry of really blurring the lines between data centers and clouds and more rapidly developing applications, the old world of hardwiring applications to a specific data center or to a specific set of APIs on a cloud, that whole world is really rapidly changing today. There's a new paradigm that's often referred to as infrastructure as code. And in this new paradigm, it's all about the ability to have applications no longer really be conscious of where those applications will be executing, to be able to have applications be born to be able to fluidly live across both data center and cloud environments. And Kubernetes is a perfect technology to get this sort of vision and desire to become an absolute reality in the way your businesses can navigate, again, both on-premise data centers and clouds. As a matter of fact, in a recent survey done by IDC, we found that 77% of all businesses have absolutely prioritized container management as one of their top priorities. And the reason they want to do this, and you're starting to get the theme over and over again, is just to move faster, to be able to innovate faster, develop new applications faster, version the applications faster. They want these workloads to be portable between these environments of data centers and clouds. And finally, because these applications will be moving into production, they want to ensure that they get all the scalability that's required to run them in production and really make a difference in their business. But having said all of that about the upside of Kubernetes, there's a lot of complexity that still exists in a world of hybrid environments. A world of environments that you both control and don't control really causes traditional disciplines to become different than they used to be. Developers will be using different development tools, and they'll want to continue to do that. They'll want to be able to develop faster and faster. And finally, there's nothing that a developer wants more than to know that the application they're developing can be moved to and managed in a production environment, that it can scale to the requirements of the enterprise, and finally, that it has all of the security and also compliance required to be able to be a real valuable and competitive application. And when you get all of this right, it really is this wonderful vision of being able to use a technology like Kubernetes to be able to develop and deploy and manage anywhere, to be able to start to break down the boundaries and silos between data center environments and the cloud, but in fact, have a single integrated solution and a virtual single integrated environment to be able to deploy these application workloads. And while we're talking a lot about Kubernetes, I really want to make an important point that it's not just about a thing, it's not just about Kubernetes, but we recognize that there is a maturation of containers and Kubernetes in the industry. And as Kubernetes moves from more of a development-centric focus to now moving these workloads, and I see from some of the poll questions, and thank you for answering, many of you are starting to move Kubernetes workloads into production. As you move these workloads into production, it's really important that you manage the entire life cycle of these workloads. It's not just about Kubernetes running on-premise, but it's how do I now naturally extend it to run in a hybrid environment where I'm fluidly working between my on-premise environment and the cloud. How do I have the ability to extend my Kubernetes applications to work with traditional security and management tools that are important to ensure things like security and governance? How do I do all of this in a way that allows me to deploy production-grade environments? Production-grade environments really incorporate this extensibility to traditional tools, but also the realization that as Kubernetes applications move into production, they'll almost always have non-containerized dependencies. So how do I extend these environments to work with existing workloads, which is almost always a requirement. And to bring this to life, to talk about how Cisco and AWS work together to create this joint solution, let me again introduce Tuan Nguyen from Cisco to go into the details of our joint solution.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I'll also echo Dave's sentiment about those of you who did cast votes on the surveys. It really does help us to design content that is meaningful to you, so thank you for that. And for those who haven't, please feel free to do that. Okay, so as Dave alluded, we've designed a modular solution that addresses the complete lifecycle management of applications This solution helps teams to seamlessly connect, secure, and monitor their infrastructure and apps. So today we'll focus on the deployment of Kubernetes, the challenges around that and how we solve that, and cloud-native apps across hybrid environments. And we'll talk about how the solution provides a consistent management experience and why that's critical. So typically, enterprises have these long-standing service-level agreements for key functional areas, such as monitoring, security, management, identity. These traditional functions reach new levels of complexity when their architecture becomes distributed. So take email as an example. Microsoft Exchange for many years operated in on-premises environments. We had standardized the ways that we manage, secured, monitored the 2 or 3 server roles, and then Exchange added new roles and became a hybrid enterprise service. And it required new strategies and sometimes new tools for managing, securing, and monitoring those roles. And of course now email has become a SaaS-based service, so that also requires new strategies and tools as well. This solution would allow such applications to run fluidly regardless of their operating environment. The joint solution is the first of its kind. It's designed for simplicity, and it enables growth by adding components to the core. So the core component is Cisco Container Platform, which brings a centralized self-service management pane for Kubernetes to the enterprise. Container Platform offers 3 layers of consistency. First, the OS. So it uses a common Ubuntu image for on-premises and EKS clusters. Second, the registry. It has native integration to Amazon Elastic Container Registry, or ECR. And finally, identity management. It can span Amazon IAM across hybrid Kubernetes clusters. Now, the additional or optional components can provide functionality to cover, as Dave mentioned, both VM-based as well as container-based applications. For example, AppDynamics provides application performance management and helps maintain application health. StealthWatch Cloud monitors and secures workloads regardless of network placement. And Cisco's best-of-breed hardware platforms, such as ACI, HyperFlex, those have native integrations to Kubernetes. The CSR 1000V provides secure network transport through VPN. And finally, all of these components can be orchestrated by Cloud Center Suite, which can also deliver applications across the hybrid cloud and manage day 1 to day 2, day 0 to day 2 operations. So now, getting back to deployments, usually we see dev teams starting with using scripts to deploy and manage Kubernetes. This becomes very challenging at scale because of adjacent services, things like attaching storage, connecting networks, integrating authentication. Often, this can slow development cycles because it doesn't offer dev teams with a standardized experience. So to expand the scripting concept, op teams would have to use separate scripts to automate the creation of on-premises as well as EKS clusters without Container Platform. And the on-prem cluster would have a different look and feel than the Amazon EKS cluster. Admins and cloud teams would also have to consider both the traditional authentication providers such as LDAP or Active Directory and Amazon IAM for role-based access control. It would be very challenging for them to enforce a governance framework to determine which users can deploy what resources and where. So without policies, developers will find it cumbersome when they interact with those services because they need to manage independent identities. And even with federated authentication, pulling Amazon IAM onto the on-premises cluster would be an additional manual step. For instance, applications that require access to the Kubernetes service catalog and the cloud services published by the open service broker, those cannot use Active Directory credentials, even if they are federated. The service catalog requires an associated IAM user. So how does Container Platform ease this burden? Well, for one, Container Platform provides the management dashboard for hybrid Kubernetes environments and helps with simple aspects, such as naming conventions. It also allows the inclusion of an Amazon resource name during the deployment of a private cloud Kubernetes cluster. And the same IAM role can be included when Container Platform is used to deploy an Amazon EKS cluster. So the platform itself offers automation, self-service, also offers a mechanism for unified credential management. And one way to use IAM is to designate an identity with service account privileges, one that has administrative privileges to the on-premises cluster as well as the EKS cluster. And also for that application that I referred to that requires access to the Kubernetes service catalog, the IAM service credentials can be used to manage access or bearer tokens. So dev teams can use these credentials to stitch application services together with ease. And I think the advantage to both ops and devs teams is the usage of a common identity provider that is native to hybrid cloud. So IT and cloud teams will benefit from the self-service provisioning capabilities. This helps to consistently deploy and manage hybrid Kubernetes clusters. So managing things like scaling, scale out, GPU, tags, labels, and lifecycle management, bring up, tear down. Those are the things that Container Platform brings into the self-service framework. Developers will benefit from using a single identity source and using credentials that are shared across hybrid clusters. Now let's review the ways that the solution differentiates itself. First, I think Cisco's Container Platform is the first hybrid Kubernetes offering to natively integrate with EKS. It's also the first to provide a common identity using Amazon IAM. It can be customized to support non-containerized applications, so those optional components. It includes enterprise class support from Cisco for all of the components. And finally, only Container Platform is required. All the other components are optional. So now I'll hand it back to Dave to tell you how you can start adopting hybrid Kubernetes.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Juan. So hopefully you can see that we really are moving forward very rapidly with these new technologies that allow customers to access innovation and capabilities regardless of where it resides, and to develop applications much more rapidly to accelerate innovation. We've also talked a lot about how we're moving from sort of a new technology that developers use to now how do I move that into a production-grade environment and really use it to run my business. And then finally, we've talked a lot about how we can help reduce the risk of utilizing new technologies with having well-thought-out integrations into traditional disciplines around things like management and security, giving sort of end-to-end protection of things like the common identity authentication that Tuan talked about. You know, speaking of risk, as great as all of this sounds, you know, real projects with new technologies come with risk. And what Cisco and AWS have worked very hard to do is to provide you with a very well thought out solution, but also a very well thought out process and set of capabilities that will reduce your risk. Whenever new technologies are being considered for production environments, businesses around the world are constantly telling us that they want to take advantage of these new technologies, but they don't want to be their own systems integrator. They don't want to integrate 20 new capabilities from 30 different vendors, half of which perhaps are startups. They're looking for new technologies coupled with world-class support. And with this in mind, this is how we really approach this collaborative solution that we've created between the two companies, Cisco and AWS. We have a very well curated Kubernetes stack, the Cisco Container Platform, very tight integration, as Tuan shared with you, with AWS, to make it easy for you to get up and running in no more than 2 weeks, to be able to figure out planning to help with implementation and also making it easy to adopt. As a matter of fact, what we hear from many, many customers using our Kubernetes solution is that it's perhaps the easiest to deploy and easiest to upgrade as compared to many of the other Kubernetes solutions that are in the market. Again, back to this notion of new technologies, but in production environments, and how do I manage risk? The nice thing about this collaborative solution, it allows you to take advantage of Kubernetes, both on-premise and in a hybrid environment with AWS. But also it gives you sort of one-stop shopping when it comes to support. You'll be able to have one phone number to call, the Cisco support number, which I think is world-class and renowned for enterprise support. Because of our collaborative work together, the Cisco support infrastructure will actually work with AWS to resolve any question or issue that you have, whether it's Cisco products, whether it's AWS capabilities, or whether it's open source, all managed by a single phone call. What we're talking about today, the hybrid Kubernetes solution between Cisco and AWS, is available today. The Cisco Container Platform, the Kubernetes stack, is available as an annual subscription, software subscription model, and we provide flexible consumption possibilities where you can obtain the software only, or you can actually get the software tightly integrated with Cisco's infrastructure products, including Hyperflex. This solution is sold and supported by Cisco. It's also available through certified Cisco partners. Now, hopefully you found the content of this webinar interesting, and we've talked about Kubernetes as technology. We've talked about both the opportunity and challenges of putting Kubernetes into production environments, and we've gone through an overview of the collaborative solution between Cisco and AWS. We would love you to join us for the next webinar, where we'll really dig into a deep technical demonstration of the solution, and that's going to be held on June 25th at 9 in the morning Pacific time. So with that, I would first of all like to thank all of you for joining us for this session. I'd like to thank our presenters, Matt and Tuan, and I'd like to open it up to any questions that you may have in the audience, and you can go to the questions tab on your screen to be able to pose those questions. Let me start with a couple that have come in, and we'll go from there. So first of all, a question is EKS from AWS participating in upstream Kubernetes projects? And Matt, can I ask you to take that one?
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. So yeah, we are engaging quite a few projects there. What I'm going to do is paste a couple of links in the links section. and you guys can go and browse those. There's quite a bit of information we have online about different projects that we're engaged with.
Okay. Maybe related, and also, Matt, I think for you, is there's a lot of interest in how they can learn about upcoming EKS features.
Yeah, and we've tried an interesting new way of dealing with roadmap and feature requests. So we actually use GitHub to manage feature requests from customers, and then we post our suggestions or our roadmap features on there to get upvoted or downvoted by the community. So we'll share that as well. I'll put the link in there, but that's absolutely, we do like to have that transparency, and GitHub provides a really great mechanism for sharing roadmap details. Okay,
very good. And here's the question of how do I basically get more information on the hybrid Kubernetes solution? And Tuan, maybe you can talk in generalities about just access to more information on our collaborative solution between the two companies.
Yes, so there are numerous blog articles that I will post a link to, as well as just some public-facing information like data sheets, like at-a-glance guides. So I will post those links onto the Right Talk session.
Okay. Very good. If there are any other questions, go ahead and pose those online. And let me actually ask, or make a comment, I think, actually, from the votes is, because I'm not sure that everybody can see everybody else's results, but I think it's really quite interesting when looking at your level of container usage today. We really see a broad spectrum that spans from being in production to just considering using containers. But I think that the amount of workloads that are either being planned to move over the next 6 months or in production today looks like it's approaching about 75% of you. So I think all of you would agree that Kubernetes is an interesting technology to accelerate innovation. Many of you have been playing with it for a while, if I sort of summarize the results of the poll so far, and are just now moving these workloads into production environments, which is exactly sort of the maturity of the market that we're trying to really inject ourselves into in helping you make this transformation into production.
And Dave, probably one thing I'd like to mention is there will be the possibility of us providing demo accounts for access to lab environments, and that will be that's information that is going to be distributed in the next webinar. So for all of you who are interested in that, please stay tuned for the next webinar, and you'll have the possibility of getting a demo account so that you can interact with these labs.
Okay, thanks, Tuan. So everybody, thank you again very much. Here's another question I think that's important for everybody. So sorry, let me bring this up. And Tuan, this would be great for you, but does Cisco keep up to date with upstream Kubernetes support in EKS?
So yes, our engineering teams are very active in, one, keeping up with upstream Kubernetes, and two, iterating on the versions that are offered, that are released quarterly by Kubernetes, and then of course there's a close collaboration between our engineering teams, the container platform engineering team and the EKS engineering team. So there's plenty of collaboration that goes on, and then we also contribute materially to Kubernetes and also other CNCF projects.
Great. And sort of adjacent, maybe Matt, you could also weigh in on this with Tuan, but there's questions about Cisco support. Are we supporting native EKS, or is there some branched version of EKS that's being used as a part of this joint solution?
Yeah, really, a really important question, Dave. So, we are committed to ensuring that that you're getting the pure core trunk mainstream Kubernetes solution. That we're not branching off and making some variant just for AWS platform. And Tuan, maybe you can reflect the same on Cisco's platform. But that's absolutely, we are integrated with upstream development and contributing to upstream development, and are using that as our way of ensuring the integrity and consistency across all deployments.
Yeah, so I'll echo that as well, Matt. So our philosophy about Kubernetes is that we don't branch. We take what we call 100% upstream Kubernetes. And for us, the opportunity for innovation is really to provide that kind of ecosystem for enterprise class availability and just that automation and the self-service framework. That's really the area that we want to bring value to our customers. So we are very similar. We have a synergy where that's concerned. It's 100% Kubernetes upstream.
Great. Well, let me ask before I wrap, maybe Matt, then Tuan, do you have any final just comments or points you'd like to make?
We're really committed to our customers succeeding with Kubernetes. It's a great platform, and we've seen explosive growth. If you have some contact, an AWS team that you work with, reach out and let's make sure that you're using the platform as best you can, and we'll really do anything to support your success there. And if you don't, then reach out to a Cisco person, reach out on the website, do whatever you need to do, but we're here to help you succeed.
Yeah, and I'd say for those of you listening to this and maybe finding out about the solution for the first time, this is a deliberate design. We know that there are customers who are going to EKS to start, putting production workloads, or maybe just, start to develop, modernize microservice applications. This is a very, very closely integrated solution, and as I mentioned, it's very flexible. There's a core componentry, and then there's optional components that help to provide coverage for all of your heterogeneous application types. So I'd encourage you to learn more, and then I'd encourage you to attend the next webinar and get a demo account so you can interact with the lab environment.
No, I think that last point is very important. This next webinar on June 25th is something that I think most of you will appreciate and enjoy. So again, thank you all for joining us to talk about containers, Kubernetes, how businesses can use these new technologies in real production-grade environments, and hopefully to hear a little bit more about the collaborative solution that was developed between AWS and Cisco that makes new, exciting technologies like Kubernetes very accessible to you, not only as developers, but to move those development workloads into production environments and really use these things to run your business in a way that lets you get the value quickly and also mitigates typical risks that you might see in incorporating new technologies. So with that, I want to thank you all, and we'll call an end to this webinar, and we hope to see all of you back, and perhaps any of your friends, on June 25th for the deep dive technical demonstration of the solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.